Are you looking for a movie to watch on date night? Are you a horror fan who has seen too much and has run out of quality films to keep them engaged? Or are you just curious about what kind of underrated movies there are out there that you haven't heard about? Well, you've come to the right place, because today we'll be talking about one of the best horror movies I have seen in a long time. Specifically, a horror movie that finally revitalizes the possessed girl horror movie genre. Now, when the bar is set as high as it was by The Exorcist in 1973, you'd really think that it's not going to get any better than that. And if you enjoyed that movie, I'll spoil Late Night with the Devil just enough to let you know that it definitely does not get any better than William Peter Blatty's masterpiece in any sense of the word. However, LNWtD is a pretty darn good movie that took a lot of inspiration from Blatty's work and made one heck of an original and rewatchable horror movie that's an instant classic because of how well it meshed its various horror factors. Late Night with the Devil was released in theaters on the 22nd of March 2024 and then was later released digitally on the Shudder platform on April 19, 2024. Now, I personally have never heard of Colin Cairns and Cameron Cairns, but this sibling duo really ate with not only writing the script but directing the crap out of this movie. But what the hell is this movie even about, you might ask? It's about this Sketchtown mother effer who presents himself as a Jimmy Fallon type character but honestly gives me Jimmy Kimmel vibes, and no bestie, that is not a compliment at all. Because his ratings are in the toilet and he's gotten a taste of the good life and wants to maintain it for as long as he's alive, Jack Delroy decides to spit in the face of all that is holy and literally violates a bunch of health codes, safety codes, ethics, moralities, and boundaries by hosting an allegedly demonically possessed girl on his late night show. His thought process behind this incredibly immoral life choice is that it will boost his ratings, which, honestly, bestie, like, you go get that bag, but let's not even for a second think there won't be some kind of cosmic consequences associated with this. Now, what I really like about this movie is what we're supposed to learn from it. Remember when in elementary school we would do that whole moral of the story BS? Yeah, this movie reeks of it, but not in a spoon-feeding you kind of way, but the kind of way where you have to use your brains to come to a conclusion about what the story was trying to tell us, who these characters are, what questionable choices they have made, and how you should avoid making the sus choices they made that would have them end up in a movie ominously titled Late Night with the Devil. One of the themes I really enjoyed was the whole Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe thing it had going on in terms of being tempted by unseen forces we don't understand, specifically for the sake of getting power. And so I can somewhat manage your expectations without giving away the plot. An example of this is, this talk show host is literally making a deal with the devil by having the devil on his show in the first place for the sake of getting more views, which is his version of getting power in the world. Again, that's just one super straightforward example of that happening without giving away the plot. But as the movie continues, they'll delve a hell of a lot deeper into that theme. So brace yourselves. Another thing that this movie does exceptionally well is tackling the classic good versus evil trope. But whereas The Exorcist pushed the story along by purposely using a black and white approach to that idea for the sake of eliciting a very specific type of reaction from the audience of its time in the 70s, this movie does quite the opposite and turns the table on that concept for the story it wants to tell to a contemporary audience. Instead of the binary of good and evil, we're instead given a whole lot of gray area and an ever-changing spectrum associated with it. Characters you'd think are evil might be the sweetest souls, and characters you'd think are good might be even worse than the creature hiding under the bed you're lying on while you watch this video. And the shifts the movie takes you through to explore these themes is where the success lies, and makes it an excellent slow burn horror movie for a whole new generation that is immune to the old school values The Exorcist relies on. And believe me, there's a lot more themes where that came from, but this is just all I can say without giving too much of the movie away, because I genuinely want people to watch this movie for the first time, enjoy the experience, and come to their own conclusions about what the movie was about, which characters were innocent if there were any, which ones were pawns, which ones bit off way more than they could chew, and which ones got exactly what was coming to them. I'll be completely honest, I went into this movie knowing nothing about it, like I hadn't even seen the trailer, and the impact that it had based on the expectations I had going into this movie, which were basically like slim to none, if not in the negative 30s, it changed my life. So let's take a look at some of the cast members that stood out real quick and see what we're working with. Number 1, Jack Delroy, played by David Dastmalchian. I have never seen this man on my screen before, as far as I know, and that's what the real problem is. Who in Hollywood is purposely preventing this man from being in more movies and TV shows? Because his performance quite literally slayed in this movie. Like, legitimately, he really brought Jack Delroy's character of being a late-night television host desperate to maintain his relevance to life. And considering there's an entire mystery running throughout the movie that holds all its plot and themes together, David Dastmalchian really found the sweet spot in getting the audience to sympathize with him, be wary of him, and almost hope that things wouldn't end the way they did, and yet accept that there really was no other way out by the time the credits roll. You can have the worst plot in the world, and the execution of it can save the day. But Late Night with the Devil manages to capture a fantastic plot expertly executed by this man. Like, he literally carried this movie on his back. Someone get him a better agent ASAP. Oh, never mind, he appears to be booked and busy, so I guess someone listened? Moving on. Number 2, Laura Gordon as June Ross Mitchell. Her character was incredibly interesting, mostly because I did not see that twist coming. You'll know it when you see it. Laura Gordon did a phenomenal job in playing a parapsychologist who keeps her cards so close to her chest that you literally had to get a demon involved to get some tea spilled, amongst other liquids. Number 3, Ingrid Torelli as Lilly. Speaking of spilling tea, Ingrid's performance as Lilly is a good balance of comedy and psychopathic horror. I don't know if this girl is a teenager in real life or just looks young, but imagine if the teenage girls who bullied you in middle school also had the added factor of being possessed by the devil. Yeah, they'd literally be unstoppable. Let me expand on this. Like, if I'm going to a Tim Hortons or like a Burger King or whatever, and it happens to be after 3, and there's middle schoolers in that area, I will fully let myself starve rather than walk past them because those mother effers are ruthless. Now, imagine they're even more unstoppable and have a lack of a filter and the psychic powers of the devil, and I will actually just leave planet Earth at that point. That exact feeling, if you can relate to it, is what Ingrid Torelli captures in her role as Lilly. What a queen. Whoever is getting David Dastmalchian an agent that's going to work him to the bone, get this girl that same one. Number 4, Iain Bliss as Carmichael Haig. I hope Carmichael burns in hell. Shout out to Iain Bliss for playing him so well, because it's been a while since I've had a character on screen who I want to beat the living daylights out of because he just wouldn't shut the F up. Fun times.
Okay, flair for the theatrical doesn't go.
So get this, the movie is presented in 4:3. For the most part anyway, because it takes place in the 70s when everyone had those square cathode ray tube TVs instead of the widescreen QLED, OLED, whatever the heck LED monsters we have now. But can we get a oh yeah for that blurry-ish, grainy-ish picture quality? Like, not gonna lie, I literally live for that ish, and that's why my entire channel is literally me watching TV shows from the last century. Okay, not all of them, but I'm just a huge fan of old school shows and old school tech. Like, it was so sexy for no reason, and I hope the Lord can forgive me for what I'm about to say, but this movie about hosting the devil on a late night show do be looking pretty hot with the way it's filmed. So we got the grainy look down, so it sets a creepy mood similar to that of The Exorcist, which ironically can be seen on widescreen today, even though it literally took place in the 70s. The movie also largely takes place on the set of a late night talk show, which makes for a really claustrophobic experience for the viewer and adds to the tension considering everyone is in such close proximity to a demonically possessed girl who has the ability to defy the laws of physics and all that is holy. Yeah, good luck with that. We got some psychedelic art inspiring the backdrop of the show and dull colors to match the Halloween timeline setting of the movie, so as far as setting the stage goes, the visuals will have you feeling like you're sitting at home watching a Halloween showing of your favorite late night show with your parents who let you stay up because you were out late trick-or-treating. Prepare to have your pretend childhood totes violated by what's about to happen on screen. If you were looking for gore, go somewhere else. This movie does not have too much of that going on. If you were looking for a slasher, check out the Scream series instead, and you can get some ranking insight on those movies by checking out my Scream movie rankings playlist right here. But what this movie does in terms of horror is go the psychological route, similar to The Exorcist. While in my opinion, The Exorcist does a much better job of creating a disturbingly dread-inducing environment, because that has more to do with the little girl who should be safe in her bedroom but totally isn't, this film instead relies on dramatic irony to create the dread, where the audience is already well aware that things are going to get really bad really fast. We just have no idea of knowing what events will take place and how bad things will actually get. That dread drives the plot forward and keeps you on your toes. I know it shifted my paranoia into 4th gear because I, for the life of me, couldn't figure out how it would all end, and by the time we got to the end, I was screaming, crying, and throwing up. I also might have peed a little, but that was more so because I'm lazy rather than having anything to do with how scary the movie was. So yeah, if slow burn horror that drives you insane and trying to figure out what's going to happen all the while the events that are unfolding on the screen are progressively getting worse is your thing, then this movie was made for you. If I were to give it a rating for its genre, I'd give it an A-. It's original, it's spooky, it plays more like a drama than a stereotypical horror movie, and given that I've seen some really trash-tastic horror movies over the years, I'll take a drama movie marketed as a horror movie any day over a horror movie marketed as a horror movie, because the former usually ends up slapping harder in terms of legitimate horror, while the latter ends up being a slasher flick with a little too much comedy thrown in. Love them both, not gonna lie, but depending on what you're into, LNWtD is definitely a drama wearing a horror costume. And there you have it, folks. You've got yourself a super sick recommendation to watch with the Mr. or Miss next time y'all are renting a movie to spook each other out. Let me know what you thought of Late Night with the Devil, if I hyped it up too much, or if I didn't hype it up enough, and what movies you thought were similar to it that you'd like to recommend to other people who might run into your comments in the comment section. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed this review, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more media reviews, unboxings, video essays, trivia videos, and more. Chat with y'all later. Have a good one. Bye.